Hey, folks, welcome back to Adopt Africa. This is Chris coming to you live from central Pennsylvania once again. And today, I'm kind of excited. Well, yeah, I'm very excited. Anytime I can get a Springbok on the channel, that's always a good day. As you remember, a couple weeks ago, we were very fortunate to have Springbok number 636, Andre Sneeman, on the channel. That was an epic stream. He was a fantastic guest. And today, going to get a guy who's Springbok number 637. That's right. Vlok Cilliers. He'll be on the channel in just a moment. I'm going to introduce him. But listen, folks, welcome to the channel. Thanks for coming back. Really appreciate you being here. Let's see if we can't have a good conversation with Vlok. Now, for those who don't know, he's Springbok number 637, and he was with the national side back in the 90s, and he had a test match against the dreaded All Blacks in Durban. So we'll talk about that. And he has lots of ties and links to some people that fascinate me in the rugby world, like Borne Sten and Henneke Meyer and many others. But he's currently involved with the French national side. No, I'm just kidding. We'll talk about Les Bleus and what's going on there because he's very optimistic. Also get his thoughts and ideas about the Springboks maybe joining Six Nations, leaving the Rugby Championship. We'll talk about the differences in Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere. So, folks, with that, I'm going to bring him in right now. So, folks, this is Vlok Cilliers. Welcome to the channel. Vlok, how are you today? Oh, it's still on mute. Sorry. No, it's still not. Your computer. There you go. There you go. Okay.
Good day, Chris. Or good evening, Chris. And hello to everybody. And it's nice to be in your show. And I'm looking forward to a great chat.
Yeah, no, as am I. So listen, looking over when I was doing a little research about you, because I know something about you. We know each other from LinkedIn. That's where we first met on LinkedIn. Isn't that a cool network to reach out to people?
No, it's an unbelievable network. I met so many people through LinkedIn, and a lot of business guys and a lot of different sport trainers and different coaches from different sporting coaches. So I learn a lot, and it's quite interesting the stuff that people sharing on that platform. So it's a good platform.
No, I think so. It's fantastic for a professional platform. I've, when I first started reaching out to people in the rugby world on LinkedIn, some people like this Army guy, and he's an American, and why does he want to be linked to me? And then they read my profile and they started reading some of the stories that I post and the analysis I offer, and like, oh, this oak knows something about rugby. And then then they I don't know if that's the experience you had, but I had Talon Stanford. I don't know. Do you know Talon Stanford, the South African who's a broadcaster? Yeah. South African / American, because he played for a 7 side, so we get to claim him too. But Talon and I got connected on LinkedIn, and when I met him in Vegas the first time at the Sevens tournament, he's talking to me. He goes, "Yeah, I didn't get this Army and Cold War and a colonel and rugby," and he said, then I looked closer and I figured it out. So anyway, but I've met a lot of interesting people in the rugby world on there. Some rugby club owners, officials. Jaco Piper is a connection of mine on there as well. Stuart Lancaster, a lot of interesting people from the rugby world. But I can't seem to get Brian Habana to put the accept, so I'm going to have to give him a call.
I think he's a bit scared for social media, and I think he's. I'm not sure what his reason, but I think he will have his reason.
No, he's just a busy guy. He's been that goodwill ambassador for World Rugby. So anyway, so Vlok, like I said, looking up a little bit of data about yourself just to make sure I was fully informed for a good interview. It looks like you were born or from Williston, which is, looking on the map, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, you actually put it very nicely to say it's actually in the middle of nowhere. It is like, the old Western movies where you see that old dirt town, we only have a few houses there, and there's one bar and one coffee shop, whatever. So the town Williston, where I was born, is like a traditional old small Karoo town where there is actually nothing. But back in those days, I'm talking about maybe 40 years back, it was still a good place to grow up and to bring up your kids before everything became Western and everybody moved their kids and to the city and to work in the city. So it's not the same anymore.
So you're saying it was a great place for good family values and learn the value of hard work and that sort of thing.
No, unbelievable. I mean, I never have any doubt, or not doubt, but any maybe miss opportunities or anything that I say, yes, maybe I could go to a bigger school, or maybe I could do better or play more rugby or whatever. I have a nice upbringing. I enjoy my life at school until my matric year, and I made beautiful friends, and I just have a nice time when I was a kid.
Well, that actually raised a good question I wanted to ask you about, Vlok, and that is, for those who know South African rugby and know it well, there are a small number of what I would call traditional feeder schools where the Springboks, they look for young talent in certain places around Pretoria and the Western Cape. Williston in the Karoo really doesn't rise to that level. So did you feel you may have been a disadvantage as an opportunity to make it big in rugby because of where you came from?
No, definitely. My wife always said, "Listen, I think if you were in a traditional rugby school, maybe you could play longer for the Springboks or quicker or longer for Western Province or whatever." And yes, it is right. And but it was a choice of mine to stay there. If I look back now, maybe I could be in a bigger school, play the traditional bigger rugby schools, could play against each other, not the small towns where I used to. So maybe in that department, I think I missed out to play against 10,000 or in front of 10, 20,000 people when you play for your school against other big schools. But I think I was the first and the only Springbok that coming out of the Karoo from Williston to Melbourne. So yeah, I think don't it will ever change.
Well, that's actually pretty awesome. Awesome. When you get back to Williston, I imagine people know who you are, and it's you must be like a major celebrity in that small town.
Yeah, funny enough, Chris, I think I haven't go back there the last I think 20 years because it's so occupied by traveling around the world and occupied with the stuff that you're doing. So you don't actually really have time to go and spend a week or 2 weeks there. And also the other thing is as we grow older, a lot of people left the town going to bigger cities and a lot of people moved away. And in a way, also lost contact with a lot of people. So I think if I go back now, maybe I will pick up here and there some people that I still know. But I think general, I think it will be quite foreign or new to me if I go back now.
Well, listen, you were in the Karoo, so I'm going to guess that your family wasn't involved in the industrial sector. Maybe they were involved in some sort of cattle ranching or sheep herding or farming. What exactly did your family do there?
And no, listen, you're right. My father was a farmer. He was a sheep farmer, and in those Karoo towns, 90%, 100%, all the farmers are sheep farmers, and here and there you have cattle farmers as well. But those areas just lean more to sheep farmers. So and that is still the case today.
Well, listen, I'm guessing that you probably were expected to do a little bit of work on the farm growing up. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I know. I must say, I'm quite honest. I'm not. I wasn't the biggest farmer that can be there. I mean, I help my dad, and we farm and we between the sheep on holidays, and we there in the field and with the sheep, and you farm and you help the day to day jobs and stuff. But it was not really in my blood. I always know. Listen, I'm not going to be a farmer one day. And but my eldest or older brother, he's the typical farmer. He's the typical guy that can spend time on a farm and do and hunting and all those kind of things.
Is your brother still involved in farming in South Africa?
No, no, actually not. The day my dad died, and we decided to sell the farm, and my brother, he's a teacher, and up till now he's still a teacher, and we just decided, listen, nobody wants to go back there. I was playing rugby full time, and my brother said no, he don't or he can't go back. He's full time in a big to be a teacher. So it was difficult those days. So we
Yeah.
just sell the farm. Looking back now, it was the best option.
Well, yeah, looking at what's been happening in the last 26 years in rural South Africa, especially on farms, it's not to get into that topic. It's kind of horrific, but maybe it was for the best. But it's unfortunate because I'm guessing your family probably your dad wasn't the first generation farmer. It probably something that was in the family for a long time.
Ah, no, no, definitely. It's going back his dad and then his dad, then all the previous families. No, it was a family farm for hundreds of years.
Now, for folks who don't know, because we all know you as Vlok Cilliers, your actual given name is Nicholas. So Nicholas Vlok Cilliers, correct?
And I never use that name. I only use it on my passport. That's the only place that I'm using is my name, Nicholas. I never use it. Always have to fill it in, and I don't know what is used for that.
Well,
But
actually,
yes,
the reason I ask is, or I mention that is because I don't think many people actually know that. So it's not a state secret. We haven't revealed any state secrets here. But for those who know me, they look me up and they try to find me, and they're like, I can't find you. Well, that's because my name is not really Chris Wyatt. It's actually William Martin Wyatt. But I was born on
really,
Christmas Day.
is that why your name is Chris?
That's right. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, and my natural father apparently did not get along. I think it had something to do with the fact that my mother was 19 and my father was 30 when I was born. It may have had something to do with that. And so they were at the hospital that morning. And of course, this is, back in the dark ages before electricity and motor vehicles and things like that when I was born. But they were at the hospital, and now you know what the gender of your child is because they have all these stupid reveal parties. But so they're at the hospital, and my grandfather says, they're talking about naming me. My grandfather says, it's easy. If it's a boy, it's Chris. If it's a girl, it's Chris. It's just a question of whether you spell it with a K or a C. What are you talking about? It's Christmas Day. Come on. Anyway, so my father ran off and filled out the certificate of live birth and put down William Martin Wyatt, and then he won the battle, but my grandfather won the war because I've always been known as Chris. So just like you, that's why I raised it, because if someone says Nick or Nicholas, you probably don't even hear them. If they say Bill, Willie, William, I'm like, I don't even hear that because I go by Chris. And if you know me, you know my name is Chris. And just like you, if you know you, we know your name is Vlok, not Nicholas.
No, definitely. I know my family, and in the family, let's call it in the family tree or in family tradition, whatever. There is a lot of Nikus. There's a Niku Vlok, and there's a Niku, and all the with the surname. So there is quite a few Nikus, and I think it's just coming from there. And I think our parents and our grandparents in the days back, they just love to give you three names. Like now today, only give you one name.
Well, speaking of family trees, I don't know. We haven't had a chance to chat ahead of time because you're a pretty busy guy there. What with trying to get that sad French side in shape, we know how bad the French are. No, but
Yeah, yeah.
no, but seriously. So Cilliers, that's not a Dutch name. That sounds like a French Hugo name. French Huguenot.
That is French Huguenot, yes.
So, do you know any of your family history, or does anyone in your family trace it back?
I must say, I'm not big in going back in history, and it also doesn't bother me from where my grandparents is coming from or where they come in Africa or over here or wherever. I don't mind, or I not mind. I don't care about what happened in the past. I know the surname Cilliers is somewhere a French connection. Yes.
Okay. Well, you sound more like an American. The rest of the world, people always try to tie you to the sins of your parents and your grandparents. And a lot of Africans, of course, you ask them where they're from, and they'll tell you some little remote village located somewhere. And you're like, I thought you lived in Joburg. No, 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 no. That's where I live, but I'm from. My people are from, because they always. But you sound like an American. Americans, we don't care where your parents came from, who they were. They could have been the greatest or worst person on the planet. We care about who you are and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, Chris, I just say, what will it make to me as a person going forward in the future? If I know what happened to my grandparents or where they come from or this one married this one and then out of this marriage this happened or whatever, it's not going to change my outlook in life. It's not going to change me as a person. It's not going to define me as a person. And I just said, listen, I don't mind and I don't worry about what happened in the past. I know what I have to do for the future.
That's a great point. Listen, so Hendo, who's in the UK, he's South Africa, but he lives in the UK. He asked kind of a cheeky question, so I'll just get it out there right now because we talk about the crew, and so he's wondering if you learned your tackling skills by tackling sheep on the farm as a kid.
Now, funny enough, when you work in the kraal and you get the sheep together to work with them and to dip them and to dose them and whatever, you sometimes not tackle, but you need to grab the sheep and you need to put them on the truck and you need to turn them around and do all sorts of things with them to look after their health and stuff. So yes, it's in a way you can say you have to tackle the sheep, but it's not like a real rugby tackle.
Interesting. So no, I just people always love to tell their sheep jokes, so I just thought we'd get that out of the way, so we didn't have any issue with that. But so I'm taking some of the comments from the chat here before I get back to my questions. But so one thing I wanted to mention here is that Olaf has said that he's looking at buying a small holding in Williston. He said the only thing I see there is stones, so I guess Vlok practiced on stones.
I know how to throw a stone. That I can do very well. And now in those days, believe it or not, there was like one rugby field, and it was split between the morning the school have to play, in the afternoon the town play. And in those days, rugby in the platteland or the little towns was very big, where the one town play against another town, where all the farmers came in on a Saturday afternoon. They parked their cars around the field, and the whole town is there on a Saturday afternoon. Watching the one town playing another town, and after the game is finished, then everybody went to the local hotel, to the bar there, and then they played the game over there, and that's how it was in those days. It was actually unbelievable. It was so, it was just nice, but nowadays it don't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's it's you mentioned we were kind of on this a little bit earlier about going to a different school, and it's kind of sad, and I'm kind of getting away from something right now, but I just want to cover it. Is that you watch Currie Cup games in South Africa these days. You can't count 2020. This is the year that doesn't exist. It's bizarre, but the last few years, the last decade or so, you watch Currie Cup games, and I think there's more people standing in the queue for a bus in Oxford than there are at a Currie Cup game. But varsity games in South Africa are wildly attended. Still, lots of people go to watch the kids play. It's amazing the support for the game at that level, but we just don't see it. And there's a lot of excuses and reasons why we don't see it at Super Rugby and Currie Cup. But certainly, rugby for high school kids is something that's very passionate in South Africa still.
Yeah, definitely. I always say, if you need to entertain the people. You need to give people something to come to the game. I mean, if you look at the NBA, you look at NFL, you look at college, college NFL. I mean, it's massive. Now that's why Varsity Cup is such a success story, because it is first of all, it's not expensive, but there's entertainment on the Monday evening. So you give the students something to go to, and you give them a reason to come to the field. Now the Currie Cup and the Super Rugby is a dead product. I mean, it is becoming now for years. It's not working at the moment. And if the Stormers play the Crusaders, then the Crusaders play the Stormers next year. And then it's like a championship. The Springboks and All Blacks play each other 3 times in 1 year. So if I'm watching the All Blacks and the Springbok once, why do I have to watch it for a second time? And why do I have to watch it a third time? And the Currie Cup the same, and the Super Rugby the same. You have a dead product. And they need to change that. They need to change the competition. They need to change the format. They need to give the public a reason to come out and to come and watch their games, which they don't do at the moment. And it'll be interesting to see what will happen now, going forward now next year, if that will change. But at the moment, they have a dead product, and it's not working at the moment.
Yeah, well, we'll unpack that a little bit later in the interview and the conversation, because I think that's an important one to talk about. I've been very critical of the crowds and the way that Sanzar has handled the Rugby Championship and Super Rugby, and also very disappointing Currie Cup. I mean, when I think rugby, the first thing that comes to mind is South Africa. And when I've got more people standing in line at the Pick and Pay to get some food than at Loftus to watch the Bulls play, that's pretty sad. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But a comment that came in here from Rudolph Kitching. Rudolph said the following, Vlok. This is pretty interesting, so let me share this with you very quickly. He said that he had the privilege of watching Vlok play in his time. Man, you were good. 4 exclamation points. And he said, glad you're still involved in the game. So he must have really enjoyed watching you play.
Yes, that is nice to hear, Chris. I mean, our days, there was TV, and in those days when I was playing Currie Cup rugby, you have a good product. There wasn't too much international rugby. So you have a good product on a Saturday afternoon, and there was like 20, 30, 40,000 people at the game. And it was good. And it wasn't Super Rugby, but Super Rugby in a way changed it. So I still remember my Currie Cup days, and I really enjoy the games. And I remember even if you played units and there was like a small union you played, there were still 20, 25,000 people. Nowadays, when the Bulls play the Stormers at Loftus, they hardly make 10,000 people.
Yeah.
compare that product, Chris, to the club rugby in the UK.
Oh, no comparison.
It's good. It's full stadiums. Compare that to the product in France. In France, the top 14, it's full capacity.
Yep.
So it's all about they need to change the product, and I think a lot have to do with privately owned because clubs have been privately owned, so they can contract, they can change a jersey, they can change a lot of things. Which in the moment in Africa, the unit is owned by SARU, the South African Rugby Union, and if that doesn't change, then that's why you have a dead product.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I mean, one of the problems, I guess we're kind of getting into it now. That's good, but one of the problems I would argue, and I would suspect you agree, Vlok, is that no, listen, it's awkward for me to say that there's too much rugby because I can watch rugby anytime. I mean, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning watching rugby in New Zealand. Don't tell anybody that I watch rugby in New Zealand, but I am up 3 o'clock in the morning watching that.
Yeah.
We've got a feedback there. Did your speaker come on or something?
Let me see.
There you go. It came out. Okay, but now I can't hear you. Oh, are you there? Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I got you.
perfect.
It must have come loose. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I can be up at 3 o'clock in the morning and watch rugby in New Zealand, despite the fact that I hate the All Blacks. But anyway, I can be up to watch rugby at that time. I'll watch anytime. So it's awkward for me to say there's too much rugby, but let's be honest. There's a saturation of rugby at the professional level, and that's probably what's contributed. Plus, I would argue that Curry Cup, but especially Super Rugby, has been so mismanaged. I mean, Super Rugby seemed to be on this inexorable path to increase the size of the league, and what they did is they thinned out the talent base, and they caused all kinds of problems, putting clubs here, increasing the size of the league from 12 to 14 to 15 to 18, back to 15, down to 4. Who knows where they're at? You never know who to root for. Your team is here one day, it's gone the next.
Yeah, and also, if you look at rugby in the UK, so let's take two teams. Let's say Saracens play Bath. So they
Yeah.
play each other twice. You play Saracens, play Bath, and then in the second round, then Bath play them against Saracens, and that's it. But now the Stormers play the Bulls, and then the Curry Cup, Western Province play against the Blue Bulls again. So now you have a lot of games home and away. So the guy said, so now if the Western Province play against the Bulls, the Springboks is out. So I have to watch unknown guys. I have to watch under 20 guys. I have to watch guys who I don't know. And it's not a bad thing. That's the next generation coming through. But the guy who's watching rugby in the UK or in France, watching Toulouse play against Racing, and they're watching the French guys playing, they're only playing home and away, and that's it. So they don't want to miss a game there. And that's because you have a good product. But they need to change that in South Africa, and if they don't change it, Chris, I promise you, a lot of players will go away because you can talk to a lot of players at the moment. They don't want to stay in South Africa, and first of all, obviously, money playing a big role in going. You can earn in euro, you can earn in pound, but the second is you have a dead horse, so there is no motivation for them to stay. I have to go there again. So they need to change that. If you don't change the product and they don't change that, they can market however they want to market. The people are not going to come to the stadium.
No, I agree with you. And we've seen this for the better part of the last decade. A lot of South Africa's best players aren't playing at home. They're playing in France. They're playing in Japan, especially those two places. Some, of course, play in the UK or Ireland, whether it's Pro 14 or it's Premiership, but they're playing abroad. And so if we want to watch Mornay Sten went to France, disappeared. You know, I love Mornay Sten. He's one of my favorite players. Between you and me, don't share this with Mornay, but when he came up, he wasn't a particularly good defender or tackler, but he was a heck of a kicker. But listen, I'll say this about Mornay. He developed those skills, became an all-around player, I think. But that's just an outside assessment from a layperson. But anyway, so we don't get to see. I mean, Brian Habana goes and plays in France. We see. So I was in Japan for the World Cup, and I was at Shizuoka Stadium to watch a game, and that was the Springboks game there. And I was outside, and I saw all these young guys wearing these T-shirts, and they had a picture of Quagga Smith on it. So obviously I walked over, and I'm thinking, what a bunch of strange fanboys here. I mean, Quagga's a fun guy. I enjoy watching play sevens, and he's really improving his game in the 15s. But I'm like, that's kind of odd that there's such big fanboys. And so I introduced myself, and I said, hey, you guys are fans of Quagga? Sure, we love him. I said, well, why such big fans? Well, because he plays in our team. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
He plays for this Blitzbach. What are you talking about? No, he plays in Japan. I'm like, Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, so just another example of how a lot of South
Exactly.
Africa's talent. And then, unfortunately for South Africa, Vlok, I'd say this is that because of sadly so many South Africans have been emigrating from all ethnic groups, but particularly those who are from rugby families have been emigrating. Those of us around the world, whether it's Canada or Ireland or it's here in the U.S., we benefit from that. I mean, C.J. Stander in Ireland, you've got DTW Van der Merwe in Canada, and we've got Hanko Hemmelshuis here in the United States, all a result of immigration and all making our rugby better. So thank you, South Africa, but it's kind of heartbreaking to see this talent leave the shores of South Africa.
Yes, and the other thing is in rugby is um, the amount of rugby players from South Africa that is going abroad is growing by the numbers every year. I mean, 2 years ago, the amount of players playing in Russia in that professional league was like 20. Currently, at the moment, I heard this morning, currently at the moment, the Russian players or the South African players playing in Russia is 122. From 22 years ago to 122 at the moment, playing in the first and second division.
Wow.
And there's no, I know there's four South African coaches. Yeah, four South African coaches that is currently coaching the top three clubs in Russia. So I mean that is just. I mean, 2 years ago they said there was only over 350 South Africans playing in the first and second division and third division in France. Don't even talk about the amount of SA players playing in the UK or in Wales and Ireland and even in America. There's a lot of South Africans playing in America as well and in Canada. So it will just grow. It will get more and more and more because it's just you're not going to stop it. Never ever.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, I appreciate guys going to France or Japan because of big paychecks, and that's when Saru came up with what I thought was a very unfair and stupid policy to say you had to have. I think they started with 50 caps, and they quickly said you have to have 30 caps, or you can't come back and be a Springbok. So if you have 15 caps, you can't be in consideration if you're playing abroad. I thought that was moronic because why should a young South African? Because the sport can be dangerous. You can have a career-ending injury and you're done. I mean, look at Patrick Lambie. He had a head injury. He's gone, and he's out of the game at a premature. He could have played many more years, but the game is dangerous at times. Any sport is. And you don't know what your career is going to be. So why should you be forced to make a few dollars or a few rand when you'll be paid a fortune to play elsewhere in full stadiums and it's exciting? I mean, I get that. People have families. They need to have security. So it's unfair, I thought, for Saru to make that requirement that you had to have all those caps. They backed off it a little bit once we saw leadership change in Saru, at least at the coaching level. But what do you think about that?
And that's a good question. I must say, and that's why I think Rashi was very clever. I think he took a pace out of the All Blacks the previous World Cup, and I think one of the reasons the All Blacks didn't do well in last year's World Cup in Japan is because of the rule that they bring in that you can only be selected for the All Blacks if you came back from overseas and then you have to play a full year in New Zealand, then you can be selected. And if you look at the amount of players that was playing overseas. With the World Cup last year, there was world class players, which I would pick before the guys that was currently in Japan playing the World Cup. And Rashi was very clever and said, "Listen," and said, "Sarah, listen to him." And said, "Listen, doesn't matter where the guy is. He can be in anywhere in the world. If he's the best guy in the position, I can pick him because he's an African. He qualified for the Springboks. Why must I penalize him for playing overseas rugby? Why must I penalize him?" And said, "Listen. You have to leave that country now. You have to come back here. I'm going to pay you less money now in South African rand. You have to play a full year here. And then if you're good enough, I'm going to pick you." I mean, that's a stupid rule. And Rashi was very clever to change that rule and say, "Listen, I can pick anybody." And I mean, if you look at the All Blacks last year, that wasn't their best team, purely because there were so many guys that they could pick. A Julian Sevilla, for example, and a Jerome Kaino, which I could pick. And they never picked them because they was playing in France, because they stupid rule. So that was very clever of us to do that.
No, I think you make a good point. I think that the All Blacks last year probably wasn't their best team. I mean, England beat them.
I mean, funny enough, on that point, we was talking to Eddie Jones this year, but I also heard a story from from one of the other coaches in the UK that Eddie prepared the team 3 years. They was eating, sleeping, drinking, whatever you can call it, just for that game, because England was working out that if everything goes to plan, the guy work it out, and they will play New Zealand in the final. And then it happened, they have to play him in the semis. And then they just demolished him. That's why after that game, the England was like, it was like deflated. They was like, okay, now the thing that we was working for 3 years, now it's over.
Yeah,
It's over.
In their psyche, they probably like, we won our World Cup, but it wasn't quite over, guys.
So it was quite interesting. So yes.
No, but I mean, we have to give it to I'll say this, and I've said this many times about last year's team. When Rossi first came, not that I doubt him at all, but the first test match was in D.C. And underneath my Springbok jersey today, which is an older one in honor of you, but not quite as old as your times, but an older one, I am wearing this. This is from when they came to D.C. a couple years ago, and that was the first test match that Rossi had. It was against Wales. And in that test match, he put some young players out there, some debutantes to like Dinyanti and some others to get their first test under their wing. And they made some really boneheaded plays, really bad offloads and some bad decisions. And they lost. And I was very angry. I'm like, no, I didn't want the Springboks to come to America to lose. I wanted them to win. But he had a good plan. And what I said about the team last year is that if I'd been the coach, not that I'd ever be the Springboks coach, but I think there were better players in some positions. But what I will say what Rossi did is he picked arguably the best team that he could. And he worked those guys as a team and got the best out of all the players in that team. And they succeeded because it was a team. It wasn't just a collection of great players.
Yeah, and then the one thing that you have to understand of Rossi, and I will always give him credit for that, he's a very clever strategic. He's like this guy going to war. Like, you remember that old thing of Japan, of Sun Tzu, all those strategies and the plans he make, and I can get better and I can expose the opponents. And he's very good in that. So the reason why he put that young team against an experienced world side in America was, first of all, to let the young guys travel, let them play outside of South Africa, let them play against experienced world team. They have a proof of point. So he understands the bigger picture, Rossi. You want to see those young guys give the opportunity, play test rugby, and they want them to experience international rugby. And I always say in sport, in rugby, we always say a good loss on the day is sometimes better than a good win, because you can learn so much out of a good loss at the right time, and you can take so much forward out of a good loss. Not a loss is good, but sometimes a good loss on a certain day is very good to just to bring some perspective into the game, and just to let you focus on a lot of other things and to see the bigger picture. So that was what Rossi was doing. That's why when the guys going to Japan, they were experienced, they were used to travel, they understand the team culture, they understand the Springbok culture, and it was very good planning of him.
No, I absolutely agree. I think the key thing with Rossi is that he sees the strategic picture. It's not just a tactical thing. He sees the long-term thing, and we're all so fortunate. I was so disappointed in England 2015, not so much at the game at Brighton where we lost to Japan, but the fact that we got robbed heading towards the final and didn't win that game, just barely lost that game. I thought in 2015 they should have won it. That was a great team, and I'm a huge Henneke Meyer fan. I love his enthusiasm. Of course, I've never played under him, so I don't know if I'd like him as my coach. But as a fan, I really loved it. He was infectious, and really disappointed that they passed on him. But I know why. It's because he refused to conform to their transformation goals, among other things. And the Japan loss, I think, was an easy way to say, well, it's time for Henneke to move on. But I think he's great. You have an association with Henneke. You've known him for a long time, haven't you?
Listen, I will always say, where I sit today, if it wasn't for Henneke Meyer giving me opportunity in 2003, he said, listen, I have this vision as the first of African coach that want to have a bigger management team. I want to bring in specialists in my management team. I want to have a defensive coach. I want to have a guy mainly focused on backline. I want to have a forward coach. I want to have a kicking skills coach. And I want the guys just looking after the forward. So you have each guy looking at a certain department. So he can mainly focus on one thing and not focus on 3, 4, 5 things. So he was a guy that giving me the opportunity in 2003 to to come to Pretoria and to be a full-time kicking coach. Even if when I think back now, I even didn't know what the meaning was in those days when I started. What my job description must be, what I supposed to do every day, and how to do plan a week. So I also have to grow in and learn into the my career as a kicking coach. So I'll always be thankful for Heineken for giving me the opportunity and to kickstart my career to where I sit today.
Well, listen, I've got to do a bit of housekeeping here really quickly. I usually do it at the bottom of the hour, but let me do that real quick, Vlok. So, folks, you're listening to Chris Wyatt Africa on the Indaba Africa channel. I'm Chris. I'm here live in central Pennsylvania. My special feature guest today is Nicolas Vlok Cilliers, Springbok number 637, currently the kicking coach for the French national side, Les Bleus. And we're going to get more into that in just a moment, but a couple more things on the housekeeping side. But I'm going to let Vlok stir on this for a moment as I finish up my housekeeping. So you mentioned going and working for Heineken with the Bulls and this betrayal of province. We'll get into that. I'm a province fan, so leaving Western Province and going to the Bulls, I don't know if that's a sin we can forgive, but we'll get back to that in just a moment. But but let me just do a little more housekeeping here. Vlok, on my channel, for those who take the time and make the effort to become supporters of the channel, because they asked me to make memberships, I did, so they can contribute something to the channel. For those who do, whenever they become a member or they renew their membership, as a military officer, I always render a hand salute, a proper hand salute to thank them. So Drian Fonsail, his membership is renewed, so I just want to quickly offer a hand salute to Drian. So here you go. That's to you, Adrian. Thanks a lot to Buy a Donkey for renewing your membership. Really appreciate it. And then we had a super chat from Penny, I believe it was. Let me just double check. It was from Penny. Yeah, when I stood up and I showed my Springboks jersey, which is a bit dated. This one's I think 12 or 13 years old. But when I stood up, Penny did a super chat and she said, "Go Bucks." And so thank you, Penny. Anyway, thank you for the super chat, Penny. So that's a little bit of housekeeping there. Okay, Vlok, you've had a moment to mull it over. Please tell us about your betrayal of Western Province by going to the Bull. No, I'm just kidding. But we were with Province for a long time, weren't you?
Yes, again, when I was at school and I was still a lighty of 10, 12, 15 years old, I always have this dream of playing for Province. And in those days, there was no television before television came. So you listen to the rugby matches on a Saturday afternoon on the radio. So I have all these heroes that I was like a Rob Lowe and a Cara du Plessis and all those guys that was legends and heroes in my eyes. And I have posters of them against my room wall. And they always said, I want to play for Western Province. And later, then television came in. And then you went to Neerlands and I see this beautiful stadium. And I saw the blue and white stripes. And I said to my dad, I always want to play for Province one day. That is my dream. So I end up I think in 1993 as 21, 22 years old, I playing for Province. And then my first year for Province, I play with a guy like Cara du Plessis. And I play with a guy like Fafet Lutz and all those guys. I just saw on the TV and listened to the radio. For me, that was my big moment I will never forget in my life. Yes, and then I have amazing 7 years or 6-7 years with Province, playing 80 games for them. And I have the best, yes, I have some good days and great years with Western Province. And never thought ever in my life that after playing rugby, I will leave the friends and going to the enemy and going across the border and end up after a couple of years ending up in Pretoria and working for the Bulls.
No, but it was you had a great run with the Bulls as well. And listen, I have a soft spot for the Bulls because, of course, a lot of Stormers and Western Province players have also played up there. I mean, Brian Habana played in both places. I'm a big fan of Habana, and a lot of other players. But and as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Mornay Sten. Actually, a little secret here. I was at the World Cup in 2015. I think it was, is it Manchester or Birmingham? I think it was where Birmingham where they were playing. I walked through town just before the game that day, and I turned and I came in. I forget what the hotel was, but there's a Springbok bus outside. So I walked in and kind of sauntered in. I sat down in the foyer there where the chairs and the couches were, and then I look over my shoulder and there's Mornay Sten sitting right there. And some more of the team came out, and I was hanging out with the Springboks. It was kind of cool. But that's what I love about rugby too, is that it's a game where the players aren't I don't know. I guess the word would be aloof. like you see in National Basketball Association or soccer or baseball or football, all these other major sports and hockey. But when it comes to rugby, whoever they are, when you run into people, they're very personable for the most part. I'm sure there's arrogant, cocky rugby players out there, probably All Blacks, but I've never met any of them. Everyone I've met has been fantastic. It's like you meet Perry Baker here in the U.S. The guy will take the time and spend the time with you. It's the same with all these players. Is that how you feel about rugby, or maybe I'm off base there?
No. You're right on the point there, Chris. But also, I mean, I must say, if you first go back to the All Blacks, I mean, I used to coach, in my career, I also coached a lot of All Blacks, and I met a lot of All Blacks, and I must say they're unbelievable guys. And always when I was the Bulls, when you play against the Crusaders or you play against the Blues in the Super Rugby, after the game, they always come over to your change room and having a beer. And winning or losing, they were good guys. They respect you as an opponent, they respect you as a person. And they will always have time with you, even if you beat them, whatever. They will come to you and have a beer. And I mean, it's, the African guys the same. I mean, they're good guys. Here and there, you will get the odd one out that is really is all about himself, and he just think about himself. But that's maybe the 1 or 2%. But generally, the main population of rugby players are good guys. They respect the public. But they also know they need the public, and they can't go without the public. So that's why they also know that they need to look after the public and give respect and show respect as well. So you get a good guys.
But you say you've coached some All Blacks, but let me ask this question. Did any of them happen to be any of the very few Kiwis that actually play for the All Blacks? We all know that that the All Blacks are simply the farm system. They get their farm system from the Pacific Islands. I mean, all their players are Fijians and Samoans. I mean, come on, Dan Carter, and that's about it. The rest of them are Fijians and Samoans. Come on.
You're right there. No, let's. I 3-4 years ago, I met one of the All Blacks, and we're still friends today. Ma Nonu. He's one of the All Black legends. I mean, he played 2 World Cups, won 2 World Cups. So he's an unbelievable guy. I mean, the first time when I met him in Talon, I mean, he came over to me and he introduced himself to me. And I said, hey, you don't have to introduce yourself to me. I know who you are. and then we became friends, and we spent time together, and we share so many things. And up till now, even when he's in America and he's now back in New Zealand, we're still in contact, and we still keep contact, and that's nice for me.
So speaking of the All Blacks, your test match that you played in the green and gold was back in '96, and it was against the All Blacks in Durban, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
What was that like? Stepping on the pitch, wearing that jersey, and getting that test match. You came on as a sub, as I recall, for that game. Is that correct?
I came up as a sub for Joe Stransky.
I know that, Oak.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, in those days, the only sometimes you say you're the right person in the wrong era or in the wrong time. So for me, was that when I was playing for the Springboks and available for the Springboks, you were sitting on the bench, and you was only allowed to go onto the field if there was a really serious injured clearing by the doc. It was no rolling subs. It was no subs where the coach can put the guys on or off the whole time and giving you more caps. So I have to sit there, and I was in a quiet way praying that somebody get injured, that I can just go into the field and play. This never happened. So that's why I was involved in 7-8 tests, but never gone to the field to play because of the rule of that. But I mean, that is just unbelievable to put up the green jersey and you walk out of the stadium and the people singing the national anthem, and then you can stand there and All Blacks can do a haka 20 meters in front of you. It is when you're standing there, where the typical thing where you said as a child you was dreaming of that typical lap when you're standing there and your whole career from schoolboy just flashes in front of you, and then you realize this is now the real McCoy.
Well, listen, Vlok, I kind of envy you that's such a cool thing. I know I would have goosebumps if that were me standing there.
Unbelievable.
It's got to be really cool. So those days were very different in rugby in many respects. Professional rugby was just getting a foothold, just starting at that time when you played. And the other thing is that Rossi, I think one of the big secrets to Rossi's success is the way you can actually manage the team now. His bomb squad approach by rotating players in. I mean, teams were just crushed. I mean, there were always fresh, equally talented players coming off the bench to replace people coming off, and even with injuries like Lutiaga getting hurt, you replace it. You're not dropping much. You're keeping almost the same level of playing, if not better in many cases. It's just amazing. And just to switch a little bit from the bomb squad and the rotating players in, the USA Sevens. We have with Mike Friday, we've got Perry Baker and Carlin Isles, arguably two of the most dynamic, exciting, fastest players in rugby, and he can't put them on the pitch at the same time because you have two guys, you only have 7 players on there and 2 guys who do exactly the same thing. It kind of messes up the game plan. So Mike Friday kind of plays a rolling thing where he picks the right time to take Carlin out or to put Perry in or vice versa. So it's, but I tell you that the thing I think that was also a secret sauce in the recipe for the World Cup was the way that the bomb squad played a role for the Springboks. What do you think about that? Is that a fair statement?
No, it's a good statement. I think one of the successes of the Bok team and I see was clever. If I was a coach and I play against the Springboks, as a coach, because it's a physical game, it's a high tempo game, you guys gonna get tired. And after 50 minutes you need to make replacements or you need to do replacement, but also you need to be careful who you put on when and who you're gonna replace. And that was the secret. I think that was the success of Rassi, that he can actually replace his whole pack of forwards and put another pack of forwards on for 25, 30 minutes. And when you play against the Springboks, listen, that guys that I have to play against now the last 25, 30 minutes, it's a new a pack of forwards from Springboks, and that guys is not. They're the same, but they can actually be better than the guys that just started. There's no difference between a guy who's starting and is coming from the bench. And that was success of the Springboks in the World Cup, that no teams ever know how to handle that, and no teams ever know how to counter when you put up 6 other guys and you bring and you take off Bonge Hooker and you put Malcolm Marx on. And you take off Eben and Loot and you put on Ergis Snyman and Frans van Moster. I mean, that is 2 guys replacing 2 guys, and you take off Sia Kolisi, you put up Frans van Loo. I mean, and that is, if you need that position to do that is for a coach is unbelievable.
No, listen, I mean, if I was the opponent, I'd be like, oh, come on, man, that's just not fair. I mean, we spent 35 minutes holding off this pack, keeping these forwards at base, holding our own in the scrum. We're exhausted, and now you bring on these fresh guys who are just as good or better. That's not fair.
That's why if you look at the World Cup, and you look at all the Springbok matches, and that's the interesting stat for you. If you look at all the Springbok matches in the World Cup, all the games were close for 60 minutes, 55, 60 minutes. And if it does take the last 20, 25 minutes, they win that game. Just take the last 20 minutes. They all win that game by 10, 12, 15 points because of the subs they make. And the other guys are tired. And they normally start to win the games after 60 minutes. For 60 minutes competitive, the games is close. There's 1 or 2 points difference. From 60 minutes onwards, then get more penalties, concede more penalties, 1 or 2 more tries, and that is where the All Blacks actually win all the games.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, let me catch up a couple of the comments. One from a bit ago. So this was talking about when we were talking about the Bucks playing the Wales here in the DC. He said the loss had a silver lining. Indeed, it did. It was a well played strategically by Rossi. I think Vlok and I both agree on that. Rudolph, the person who was a fan of yours and saw you in your playing days, said that, and we have Cheslin Colby. And how do we have Cheslin Colby? Man, what a pocket rocket that guy is. That is one of the toughest players on the pitch. I love Cheslin Colby. So glad he's there. And then now this is Vlok, this is a little bit cheeky, so you don't have to answer the question, but I just thought I'd share it. This is from Croy Thompson, who's from the Caribbean. He's one of the viewers on my channel, big supporter, and he says, Chris, now I should tell you that after the Springboks, he's a massive Springbok fan like me, even though neither of us are South African. And then he also is the French side. That's his second favorite team. So I think that Croy must have been balanced on his head a lot as a child if the French are his second favorite team. But I'm just saying. Anyway, but by the way, a little interesting statistic. Who's the team that's lost the most Rugby World Cup finals? That would be France? No. Anyway, sorry, Vlok. I'm just having a little fun there. But Croy said, Chris, at the Super Rugby level and at the test level for the Springboks, how is the preparation structured to counter teams like the All Blacks in England that kiss up to the referee while cheating? Ouch. Okay, that was a cheeky question. You don't have to answer that one. just thought I'd share that. I guess Croy is going on the story. People are always talking about those two teams sucking up to the refs.
No, listen, the refs are playing a big role, and there will always be one part that is happy with the decisions of the ref, and you always get the other part where the team and the coaches and the spectators is unhappy with the decisions the ref has made. So a ref will never win. He will always a 50-50. One stays happy, and the other part unhappy supporters.
Well, listen, I have to say this about the whole thing is that these days with the rule changes, because the rules go back and forth, even the way you start a scrum, just I get a little confused. I'm glad I played on the wing, so I wasn't in there. I don't have cauliflower ears. I bet you feel the same way. It's and I watch the games, and there's an infraction. I'm like, wait a second, wheeling the scrum. I thought the other side wheeled the scrum. How did you? It's really tough. They have a tough job, particularly picking out penalties at the scrum. That's a tough time for officials, but I think they do a pretty good job.
I must say I must also cover for the refs as well. I'm not in my days as a coach and as a player, I came across a lot of bad decisions from refs, and you also have decisions going your favor as well. You have both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
But I must say one thing of the refs. I mean, they have to make a split second decision under extreme pressure because there's so much money involved. On the day of the sponsors, a lot of people watching on television. I mean, they make a decision on the coaches' careers and players' careers by one decision in a split second. So it's not always easy.
Yeah.
It's tough, but I don't want to be a ref.
No. Well, the other thing too is
I would rather do anything else but never be a ref.
No, but other thing people forget too is that being a referee in rugby is you have to be an athlete. You know, in basketball, you kind of backpedal and take your time on a short court while the players burn all their energy. In football, you've got half a dozen people out there who are on the field making the same calls, not just you. In all these other sports, soccer, maybe a little fit in soccer, but let's be honest, that's not a real game, Vlok. I mean, come on. Oh, yellow card, he touched me. Oh, yellow card. And also, someone just made a comment, let's hope the refs aren't being played. This is not FIFA. This is not FIFA. You don't have a game where you go back to your hotel and the official who called the game has a bag full of $100,000 cash. That's FIFA, not rugby. Let's make sure that's clear. Anyway, but it's tough though. I mean, as an official, those guys are fit. I mean, you can't be out there with a beer belly, you know.
No, definitely. You must understand one thing. Let's say two guys have been tackled. So now the ref is running to that tackle now. So now you have a lot of things you have to look at. So while he's running to the tackle, he must look if the one guy is rolling away, if the other guy is not, can he place the ball? Then you have to watch if the guy doing the side entry. Then you have to watch the other team if that guy is cleaning illegal. Then you have to watch the one back line. Then you have to watch the other back line. Then there's so many stuff that you have to look at. And then while running there, you have to make 7-8 decisions. And you can only pick one decision to make. And that's why a lot of times they will get it wrong as well. But I'd rather go and paint houses or whatever. But to be a ref, no, thank you. I don't want to be a ref.
No, I got you. Listen, it's interesting for me because while I'm a huge fan of the game, I'm actually a fan of officials. I mean, I love Jaco Piper is a great official. Nigel Owens rocks. I mean, there's
a good race.
Now, I will say that I'm not a fan of the French officials who seem to always come up short for the Springboks. I'm just saying. But I will say in the World Cup, the French official did not screw us that time. So the final,
they have a good final.
It was a really well called final. I've seen a lot of belly aching on both sides, but mostly on the English side. But I think that was one of the best called finals I've ever seen. It was really well done.
Yeah, it was good.
So listen, you're at the French side now. Let's catch up on that. You're a kicking coach there, and we profited because the French allowed us to sign Bostero to come over and play for Rugby United New York in our venture here in the U.S. professional rugby, Major League Rugby, which was in its third season and was doing pretty well when the Rona hit, the Wuhan coronavirus, and canceled the rest of our season. But we had Bostero over here playing for Rooney, and he looked a little bit out of shape, but he made a difference on the pitch, and it's interesting. So obviously you must know Bostero because of the French side. He seems like an interesting character.
He's an interesting character, and he's always been a guy that's been overweight, and that's how he play, and that's how he preferred to play. And I think he could be a better center. I think he could be a world-class center if he lost 5, 7, maybe 10 kilos. But that's the way how he play and how he's operate. And he's a good guy. I met him in Talon. He's really a nice guy. He don't have any issues. He's a good guy.
Now, I think you were quoted, I don't know if it was on Rugby Pass or somewhere else where you interviewed earlier this year, where you talked about the French side is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And is it fair to say that you think that Les Bleus have a good shot at winning the next World? Of course, it's going to be in France, so that'll be the home side advantage. But do you think they've got a chance to take it at home?
Yes. Let's take the one thing out of the equation of that the World Cup is in France. Just look at the team and the talent. I mean, there's amazing talent in France at the moment, and the average age of the players in the team, 80% of the age of the players in the team is between 20 or 19, but more 20 to 25. That is very, very young. And the average amount of tests that each player is placed between 7 to 10. And that's why I said, if you can keep this squad together for the next 3.5 years, the guys who's now between 20 and 26, they can be 29, 30 years old, and they can be 20, 25, 30 tests under their belt, which make them a very dangerous, experienced French side that grow together as a team. The talent is unbelievable there, and the squad can stay together, Chris. I can promise you now. That is one of the teams. If I'm a betting man, then I will definitely put my money on a dangerous horse and a blue to be a contender for the World Cup in 2023.
Well, you sound quite excited about it, and I imagine that we expect that you'll be there. You'll be with the French side in 2023.
I'm super excited just because I know the amount of talent that is there, the amount of talent that you're working with at the moment, and you can see the hunger in the players, you can see the commitment in the players, and the one thing that I like in the moment of the players, they also realize and understand that there's hard work to be done to going forward and to have any progress of building a big team. It will not come overnight. It have to come by hard work, and we will have a lot of we're gonna have a few losses and a bad loss over the next 3 years. That shapes character and that shapes a team. And you need to have bad losses, because if you don't have bad losses, then how do you shape as a team and shape as coaches and your character and your learning going forward? But the players realize that they have opportunity now to do something special, and they know what they have to do to become successful.
Honestly, I don't think a lot of people are paying much attention, and maybe I think the quote you may have been quoted saying that France is a sleeping giant for 2023. It sounds like that's how you feel. So I guess maybe we should pay attention to Les Bleus and not just forget about them, because they're a sleeping giant. It sounds like. Well, that's interesting, Vlok. There's a comment here from Yanni Meyer. Now, you and I spoke just before the thing, and I said, it's kind of weird because. It almost sounded like you were adopting a French accent there. I didn't hear the Afrikaans, but the longer we've talked, the more Afrikaans accent has come out. And Yanni Meyer, who's in South Africa, said he loves your Afrikaans accent. So I just thought I'd share that very quickly.
You must understand one thing. Where I'm come from, in the Karoo, I mean, our first language was Afrikaans, and our second language was Afrikaans. So we. I was actually, when I was studying in Pretoria for 10 years, we hardly speak English within the team environment and stuff. So when you start to travel and you move down to Cape Town, you intend to have more English conversations. And when you go overseas, you have to start coaching in English as well. So I'm still a progress. I'm still a learning progress in my English. I'm still mixing it up, but I always say as long as the person understands me, I'm happy.
No, absolutely. That's the bottom line. You just have to get your message across. It can be awkward. It can be confusing. As long as you get across, that's what matters. So speaking along those lines, and I'm not going to put you on the spot here, but parce que tu travailles avec l'équipe de la France, les Bleus, je dois poser la question, est-ce que tu parles français? Non? No. Okay, so the answer is no. So for the... Go ahead, Vlok, what you're saying?
I would say oui. Yes.
No, not to put you on the spot, but seriously, that's an interesting question. I think is that you work with the French, but you don't speak a language that they're familiar with, Afrikaans, and so you have to do it in English, I would imagine, because your French really isn't there. So is that how you communicate with the players, or do you learn all the commands in French?
So at the moment, what happened is all the coaches and the players, they can understand English very well. But because of the French culture, and you understand the French culture, they have so much more respect for you if you can try and speak English. So what I'm doing, I'm learning the rugby terms, all the rugby words, and when I'm talking to the team or the players, I make sure that I say the French words in the rugby terms, and la touche, that is a scrum, and penalty, and retour, which mean retour, tape long, which mean I give feedback to the kicking game. Tape long is a long kick, tape out is a short kick. So I learned the rugby terms that at least I can communicate with the players there. But it's still a long way to go. But I make sure that I need to learn the rugby terms for me to going forward.
So what you're saying, Vlok, is that you've gone to do rugby in another place where the rugby culture is a little bit different, and they speak a different language, and they use the commands in a different language, and in order to fit in, you had to learn those words, correct?
Yes, I have to learn these words. It's like when you're at school and you have to do a test where you have to stand up and you have to talk in front of the class, and they're giving you a point, the teacher giving you a point. So I'm there so when it's my time, I normally take a day where I study the French words and I make sure I pronounce it correctly. And I say it over and over a couple of times. So when I'm standing in front of the team, I'm always standing with a paper in my hand. So with me, so I'm talking to the player, but also watching on the paper if I pronounce it correctly. And that's the only way you can learn it. You have to do it that way.
No, that's brilliant. Listen, so Vlok, if you don't mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 3-minute segment, I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to send it to one of my favorite players to just help me out. That would be Vlok Cilliers. Just explain to him a little something. We won't go into that topic, but this 3-minute segment I'm going to send to him as a gift to explain to him, why you have to learn words in a foreign language sometime, and it doesn't really mean that you are not valued as a player. But anyway, so we won't get into the Vlok Cilliers controversy. We'll avoid that, but I'm being a little cheeky now. I am a big fan of Vlok Cilliers, but a little disappointed. But anyway, so we'll put that segment out there for Sia. Anyway, folks, you're listening to Chris White Africa on the Adaba Africa channel. My special feature guest today is Vlok Cilliers, Springbok number 637. He was a longtime Western Province guy, and then turned and went across the border to the dreaded Bulls up there in the Highveld, and was with them for a long time under Heineke Meyer, and then found himself in France, where he's now the kicking coach for the national side. Vlok, I don't know if you can stay a little bit longer. Can we keep you a little bit longer? Because there's a couple more questions I'd really like to ask you, but if you have to go, I understand that.
Yeah. I think I can still have another 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes.
Great. Well, let me get into this very quickly, but a quick comment from Rudolph Kitching. He's asking if you still follow the local rugby starting this weekend after lockdown. I assume he's talking about Currie Cup this weekend because it is starting. Are you following Currie Cup?
Yes. And I think everybody in South Africa is happy that the rugby actually is Friday evening. Yeah, Friday evening in South Africa, and it's tomorrow, Saturday afternoon. Then the rugby start with 2 games at Loftus, where the Bulls playing the Sharks and the Stormers playing the Lions. Still, it's no spectators like we used to now, but at least the rugby is starting. The people can put on the television, they can watch the games, and I'm also looking forward to the games to see a few young guys playing, a few new guys playing for all the franchises, which will be good. So, I think everybody's looking forward, even the players and the coaches.
Yeah, me as well. I'm very excited about it, even though it's going to be weird not having crowds. But then it's not that different than Curry Cup of late. So no crowds. But uh, John
Now,
Jarvis, go ahead.
interesting. Was interesting. I was watching the first golf tournament back in America. Then I interviewed Justin Thomas, and he said because I'm a big I like my golf and I'm watching golf and stuff. And he said, and I asked him how was it to play with no people. He said it was actually difficult. He said because they get a lot of energy when they're hitting a good drive or making a long putt. Then and the people are cheering. Then they're actually getting energy from the spectators cheering them on. He said, but now you're hitting a good drive, you're making a long putt. It's like quiet. Nobody, only your caddy said, well done, Justin. He said, so they also have to pick them up mentally to get to a level where they can perform as if they were spectators.
John Jarvis says, France is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. They are, however, a real talent product. Well, I agree with that. I mean, France has been gangbusters in some World Cups, only to get to the final and we sit there and fall asleep, like the one in New Zealand, 9-6 or whatever it was, something like that. That was boring. But yeah. But based on what Vlok has given us, we got some inside intelligence here. If you're going to put your money down in 2023, maybe you want to put it down on Les Bleus. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, but it's right. I mean, France is almost like that. They can play the All Blacks. They can beat the All Blacks. And that's the next week they can play Georgia, and they will struggle to beat Georgia. So they have to learn and they have to get that consistency. And it's one of the things that we as a coaching or the management address to the players and address between each other that we need to have more consistency and that we need to perform every Saturday and week in and week out to get to a level to compete with the likes of the Springboks and All Blacks.
Now, Croy, I remember I mentioned he's his second team is Les Bleus. He said that the refs screwed France in the 2011 final. Perhaps, Croy, but I would say that the French screwed us because we were expecting something better. It was a very boring final. All right, so let's, Vlok, very quickly, let me get to this because it's important to me personally, if you don't mind. So
Yes.
You have a long association with Morné Steyn. He seems like a good guy. He's gone back to South Africa. He'll be playing for the Bulls, not the Blues, the Bulls. And Jake White looks to be building what might be a formidable squad there. What do you think is going to happen with the Bulls? And can you tell us a little bit about Morné Steyn? Maybe something we don't know.
Yeah, no, listen. The one thing I've always said about Morné Steyn, the young guy that arrived at Loftus when he was 19 years old, and the same Morné Steyn is coming back now after 6 years in France. He's still the same guy. He still have the same hunger. He still have the same passion. He still have the same commitment. He have an amazing attitude. He's still a guy that's really working hard. He's working on his skills. He's working in all his departments as a player. He don't back off. He's still the same guy and he still do the same. He still have the same work rate. And that is a typical Morné Steyn. He's still a funny oak. Even he's 36 years old. Sometimes he's like a kid of 15 years old, still making jokes and doing tricks and stuff like that. So and that makes him a unique person, and that's why a lot of people still like him and love him because of that great attitude and stuff. And I think that the Bulls going to be a force to be reckoned. I mean, Jake is a really good coach. I worked with Jake when he was in Japan, and I know him very well as a good friend. And he's a good coach. He understands the game, and he also understands that you need to have certain players in certain positions to make this team stronger. And the guys that he's bringing back is good players. And that's why I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow to see how he's playing and how his teams look.
Me as well. I'll be honest quickly, so we wrap up here shortly. But the first time I ever saw Morné Steyn was I went to the Tri-Nations game in Bloemfontein in 2009, in which I believe he scored all the points for the Bucks.
Yes.
And he was amazing. He made some really awesome kicks that looked kind of difficult. But for me, it was a very interesting experience. It's the first time I ever was around 45,000 Afrikaners all at the same time. And
That must be good.
It was amazing. There were people walking around with stuffed Springbok heads on over their head, wearing it. It was an amazing thing. I really enjoyed it, and that's the first time I ever saw him. And I've been a big fan of his ever since then. A lot of people criticize his game early on, but you can never criticize his kicking. And I think that as he matured as a player, I think it's unfair to criticize his game. I think he became an all-around player, and he's a great asset to have on a side, I think. But let me transition from that to a final question about kicking. So you're a kicking coach, so let's ask you something that's germane to kicking, okay? So, what makes a good kicker? I mean, because I would never be a good kicker. You watch what's the guy? I'm seeing your moment here on the English side. The guy who kicks for England.
On Farrell.
Owen Farrell, thank you. You watch Owen Farrell, and it looks like he's winding up a spring as he gets ready, and then he finally goes forward and kick it. And I'm like, okay, there must be something there that works for him. But I watch Mornay. He's kind of calm. He sizes up where the posts are. He lines it up. He gets a feel for it. What makes a great kicker?
I mean, there's a lot of things that makes a good kicker, or there's a lot of things that make a good sports person. Why was Michael Jordan good? Why was Tiger Woods good? And it's two things for me. It's hard work and the ability to handle pressure. That's the two things for me. You need to work hard and you need to work your butt off. And then you still have no guarantee. But also when you're on the big stage, you need to have the ability to handle pressure, to cope with pressure, and to cope with failures, because it's going to happen with you. And that's the guys that is good. If you look at the Farrell, you look at Johnny Sexton, you look at Dan Carter, Johnny Wilkinson, that was guys that really work hard, but they also have the ability to stay calm under pressure, even if they miss one or two kicks, and they still have the ability to bounce back and to kick in front of 60,000 people as if it's just a normal practice day. So when you look at the big guys in the world in any sport today, I mean, you need to have the ability to stay calm, to handle the pressure, to work through the pressure, and also the experience that people have in you, because the people have experience and they will have more not experience, expectations, sorry. And a lot of people have a lot of expectations and high expectations, and that also make it difficult to live up to that expectations. So if you can cope with that, then you will make it.
No, I think those are great comments, Vlok. I tell you, I watched Johnny Sexton. If he misses something, he just kind of shrugs it off. You could see it in his face. I'm going to come back. I'm going to get the next one, and he does it. And I think that's a good sign. But you know, it's people don't think about the kicking game. But kicking game will cost you in sevens in a heartbeat. It'll cost you a tournament. But with 15s, you know, there's got to be nothing more deflating than crashing in and offloading, having, you know, going through 25 phases, trying to get across the try line, and you just can't get there. And then there's a penalty, so you get this odd angle kick. Your kicker sizes it up and misses it. And that's got to be very deflating for a team. So it's got to be a tough job as a kicker. People don't appreciate kickers.
And especially kicking will play a more major role going forward now of rugby, because defense is so good at the moment, and a lot of teams became defense orientated. But what I mean by that is people know, listen, I have to stop a team from scoring tries against me, so I must make sure then when I don't have the ball that I must make it difficult for a team to score. So that's why kicking will be more important. Kicking will play a bigger role going forward now. You could already see it in the New Zealand games now, that the New Zealand teams kick more than previous. You could see in the Heineken Cup now, the average kicks per game is now 35 and more. Previously it was under 30, now it's over 30, 35, because of the teams are equal and the defense is better. So kicking is like plays such a big role of getting in behind teams, expose other teams, and put other teams under pressure.
Well, listen, Vlok, I want to thank you so much, Baya Donkey. You've been a fantastic guest. Sometimes doing interviews, it's like it's a lot of work, but I keep looking and I'm like, oh, wow, the time has passed, and this has been very enjoyable for me. I hope you've enjoyed the interview as well. And I want to make you an offer here, okay? Here's the deal. As you get ready to head back to France to help Les Bleus, I have to say this. I'll help you with your French if you put me in contact with Mornay Sten so I can interview Mornay Sten. That's an offer.
Yeah, that's a good offer. No, we can do that. No worries.
Anyway, so let me get this from you, Vlok. Is any last things you'd like to share with people before we end the conversation?
No, I just think it was all strange times for us, 2020.
Oh, God.
We never thought that 2020 will turn out the way that it turned out. But for me, I always look at the bright side or the positive. We're still alive and we are still healthy. And as long as we have breath, and we can still make a difference. And the only thing that I want to tell the people is just go out there and be example, stay positive, be positive, and just let your light shine, and just know that you can be, you can pick up somebody that's been negative or whatever. So just stay positive and just make a difference wherever you go.
So I'm going to take a risk here at making I understood this correctly in Afrikaans, but Jannie Meyer says, dankie Vlok, net jammer je het vir WP gespeel. Haha. Yeah, I know. I got it. Just I thought it was funny. Listen, as I said, bye, Donkey Vlok. It's been fantastic. I really enjoyed. I'll invite you back to the channel sometime if you'd like to come back. Maybe we'll hear how the French side is doing. If you'd like to appear on the channel again, and I really appreciate your time and for being here on the channel. So thank you so much. You've been a wonderful guest, and best of luck with Les Bleus. I'll say that today, but when it comes to 2023, if I find myself in France for my 9th World Cup in almost as many years.
Unbelievable.
Oh, did you know that? So I went to 2011 in New Zealand, 2014 for the women in Paris, 2015 England, 2017 Ireland for the women, 2018 for the sevens in San Francisco, and 2019 in Japan.
Wow. And then you must go to France then.
Well, yeah, but I'm not a big fan of France, so. But we'll work it out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Nicholas Vlok Cilliers, our guest today. Thanks a lot, Vlok. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the waiting room. Thank you so much for being with us. You've been a fantastic guest. I really enjoyed it. All right, folks. There we go. Put him in the waiting room. All right, and I'll get back there just a second. Okay, got to fix the screen there with all participants. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to Chris Wyatt Africa here on the Daba Africa channel. That was my guest, Vlok Cilliers. He was fantastic. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. If you didn't get a chance to watch it from the beginning or you're just tuning in now, please go back and watch the whole thing from the very beginning. Share it with your friends. Let people know that we have this interview on here. I think it was a really good discussion. And I will be back on the air again in less than 2 hours with my next guest, Jacob, who is a young man who's an outdoor guide in the Western Wyoming, affiliated with Wyoming Catholic College and something called CORE, Catholic Outdoor Renewal Expeditions. He'll be with us. He was one of our guides for our veterans, Special Operations Forces veterans trip to Western Wyoming. Jake will be with us. He's also a Christian missionary and a young Catholic man. And so we'll be talking about his experiences, his role, and you'll find him very engaging. So please tune in. It'll be a little bit earlier. That'll be at 9 p.m. in South Africa and Botswana, 8 p.m. in London, Abuja, and Windhoek. And that is at 3 p.m. here in the East Coast of the United States. That is Jacob be with me from CORE Expeditions just in a couple of hours. Folks, thanks a lot. Olaf says thank you. Enjoyed the interview. I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you. It was Vlok was fantastic. So interesting stuff. We talked a bit about the Karoo, which was an interesting conversation. But you heard it right here, ladies and gentlemen, from Vlok. Les Bleus, the sleeping giant for 2023. Will the French come out of nowhere and take their first William Webb Ellis Trophy in 2023? Well, we shall see, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, I'm going to close out, and I'll see you guys here in just a little while on the channel once again when Jacob comes up a little bit later on. So thank you for being with us today. God bless, and hopefully we'll see you again in less than 2 hours.